All right, we are continuing here with the response vid to Nick Freitas. And he started out very sexist. He's made some egalitarian type concessions. So he's very inconsistent in his logic. It's one or the other. Either patriarchy and the complete degradation of women and the complete exaltation of men as God is true, and we're supposed to be Roman pagans, or Paul is a liar and Genesis 1 is true, and we're supposed to respect one another as equals, as brothers and sisters in the Lord, equally created in God's image, equally born of the Spirit of God, equally indwelt by the Holy Spirit, equally led, guided, and directed by the Holy Spirit, equally self-governed under God alone. And there is no exaltation of man. So which is it? Are we Roman pagans who exalt men as God, or are we born again believers who worship God alone? Which is it, Nick? So he's gone back and forth. He's waffling because obviously this paganism doesn't work in the real world and there's nothing Christian about it. He started out saying that men just have to make women shut up because they're going to lead and women are going to do what men say. And then he said, that his daughter, of course, she has a profession. And then he's talking about a woman who he says, she's a quote unquote girl boss, which I find disrespectful. Basically, she's a successful woman in a field of robotics who travels internationally. And he talked about her. And he also talked about how he and his wife hold each other accountable. So she has equal power to hold him accountable to a standard. So it's not all one-sided patriarchy, it's egalitarian. So he's going back and forth. So which is it?
So, guys, believe me when I tell you, you don't got to fly to another country. All right. I get it. I get it. There's a lot of people that are wanting to take that route right now. In fact, the passport bros is a real thing. And
he's saying that American women have too much freedom and too many rights and are being treated with too much respect. And so you got to go to some nation where the women are beaten down under men and they're just submissive fools. And I will call them fools because if you're dumb enough to play the fool, to submit to a man, to worship him as God, and to stroke his demonic, satanic male ego as he plays God with you, you have a screw loose.
I looked at this, and they're all saying, all right, where are the Orthodox majority countries where
this surrender of Christianity to the evil of Islam and Islamic style patriarchy and trying to mollycoddle these men who are behaving so disrespectfully to women. A substantial share of adults in Central and Eastern Europe hold traditional views of the role of women and the family. So what role of women? It's denying women equal status as human beings. These men, there's something seriously wrong with them. They're like, no, we want nurses to supply. We want women beaten down. We don't want women who believe they're equal human beings. We don't want women who have equal human rights. We want women who are still under oppression and tyranny that we can tyrannize and exercise our a quote unquote patriarchal role against, and they'll put up with us. Well, it's not going to happen in America. We have freedom here. We have laws that protect women and laws that give women equal rights, and those aren't going to go away.
women have traditional view. Okay, I'm booking a flight to Armenia, Romania, Bulgaria, Georgia, Moldova, right? Guys, I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying that you can find the sort of women that are looking for the sort of man you want to be. And that's the thing you've got to look at. Guys, you got to ask yourself, am I really that man yet? And you don't need to be perfect, because for any women that might be watching this, wanting a little bit of insight, that haven't hung up on me because they think I'm a horrible misogynist, the answer I gave.
He's a very conflicted man. He wants to believe it's okay to be a horrible misogynist, but obviously his wife and his daughter don't let him get away with that. Possibly if they let him get away with that, he would turn into that because he's preaching it, but he's not practicing it. He's respecting his wife as a human being, and she holds him accountable to a standard. And he's respecting his daughter as a human being, and he's saying she has a profession. So he's not coming out with the arrogant haughtiness that perhaps he would if he could get away with it. That's my question. Are you really a horrible misogynist, an evil man? And just the fact that you live in America and you have women around you who won't put up with that, is that the only reason you're not an evil monster, Nick? If you could get away with it, what's on the inside of you? Are you demonic and satanic? What are you really like inside? And what evil is being held back just because your wife and daughter won't put up with the evil of full-on patriarchy that strips them of all human rights and treats them like dirt? What is it, Nick? Who are you?
To the young woman that came up to me and said, Nick, I'm a conservative woman. I want to be a wife and a mother. I want to find a good, strong Christian conservative man who.
Just because Christian women are good people and they don't want to live the rest of their lives single. Yes, they want to get married, they want to have children. That doesn't mean they have to put up with patriarchy, Nick. A good, strong conservative man. Conservative men aren't these wild, satanic, patriarchal men who have this need to try to frame marriage as male domination and female subjugation. So he's trying to tread two sides of a fence. He's trying to pretend that you can be that arrogant and that haughty and think you're superior to a woman and think as a man, you're above her, she's beneath you, and she must listen to you because you are a higher spiritual being than her. And he thinks he can hold that philosophy and be a good man. No, you can't. And Christian women and Christian men can be wonderful husbands and wives and parents without adopting patriarchy. And they can reject Paul. Paul is not the definition of what it means to be a Christian. Paul is the definition of what it means to be a Roman pagan. He is a Roman Catholic false apostle. He's a pagan.
You can lead, but I'm just having a lot of trouble. And I looked at them, I said, do you think it's possible that your standards are misplaced? And she goes, what do you mean? I want a strong man who can be a Christian, a conservative, and lead and all that. I'm like, yeah, but do you expect him to be everything you need him to be right now? Do you expect a completed product? Are you a completed product? Are you just the princess waiting in the tower? There's no issues with you at all?
Okay, there is some fairness about what he's saying, that if people are expecting, someone to conform to an image, they're not going to. People mature through relationship. I'm going to segue because I've just heard enough of him today. We're going to review Ephesians 5:22 through 33, the household code in its world. And this, let's see if it tells us who it's by. It's written by Jason Elder. What is that, August 2019? I'm not sure. I don't see a date on when this was written. All right, so let's read what he has to say, and I will give you my views. But this will reveal that Paul is a pagan and where he's coming from. Few passages in the New Testament generate more disagreement than Ephesians 5:22 through 33. Read one way, it sounds like a set of instructions frozen in a distant patriarchal past. Read another way, it sounds like the most radical redefinition of marriage the ancient world had ever seen. Both readings are trying to account for the same 9 verses. The difference usually comes down to how much of the surrounding world Paul was actually writing into gets brought along into the reading. This page is not going to tell you what to conclude. It's going to try to do something narrower and hopefully more useful. Lay out what a first century household actually was, what a household code was as a known literary genre before Paul ever wrote a word of Ephesians, what Paul kept from that genre, what he changed, and what the wider biblical story says about the value and dignity of women independent of this one passage. The goal is for a reader to close this page knowing more, not agreeing with anyone in particular. So he's going to make an effort to tell you the history of where it came from. It's worth naming the circumstances Paul writes this from. Ephesians is one of Paul's prison epistles, so he says, so the author says. Written under Roman guard, household instructions written by a man with no household of his own to manage, confined and dependent on others for his daily needs, sit in an interesting position relative to the authority structures he's describing. So here is the problem with the exaltation of a man. Christians are told by God in the first commandment to never exalt a man, but Christians have exalted Paul as into a demigod, and they've made him messianic, and they've made him the equal of God, where he's simply a man who they tell us, and it's a fable, lived in the first century and was under prison guard in Rome. And he's going to start telling us about household codes in pagan Rome. And the source of these household pagan codes is from Aristotle politics and from the pagan Roman Empire that crucified the Lord. And that is the basis of his writings. So he's not drawing something from the Lord. He's drawing his source from pagan Roman law. This is paganism being spoken. It has nothing to do with God from heaven. It has everything to do with Caesar and paganism. These are pagans, okay? And this is satanic. The way that ancient Rome ran their households was evil incarnate. And that is the basis and the foundation and the source of Paul's writings in Ephesians 5. The household was not a nuclear family. The English word household carries almost none of the weight the Greek word behind it, oikos, carried in the first century. A modern household typically means a small, private, romantically formed nuclear family, 2 parents and children, largely disconnected from any economic or civic function. This is in the free world. In the free world, you have a nuclear family. But in ancient pagan Rome, everything was under Caesar as a collective in the Roman Empire, and it was the most wicked empire in the history of man. It's the Antichrist system that crucified the Lord. There's nothing more evil than crucifying the Lord. So some people want to romanticize ancient Rome because they love paganism and the worship of men as God. They love patriarchy. Paul is writing from a patriarchal position of pagan Rome. The ancient oikos, this was in pagan Rome. This is a paganized Roman Empire. This has nothing to do with the family of God and how we are to be led of the Spirit of God. This is under the Roman gods, under Zeus, who is Satan personified. The ancient oikos was something closer to a small business, a farm, and a legal entity rolled into one. It routinely included extended families, slaves, freedmen, hired laborers, and sometimes tenants, all bound together under a single head, the paterfamilias, and all contributing to the household's economic survival. It was a mini Roman Empire, and the paterfamilias was the mini Caesar, the mini dictator, the mini satanic entity, because Caesar is a satanic entity of the Antichrist. So this was a mini Antichrist. This is pagan Rome. So Paul is modeling everything after pagan Rome.